Welcome everybody to the California Small Farm Conference. This is the final session of the virtual conference, so we're really excited to have you guys here. My name is Evan Wigg. I'm with Community Alliance of Family Farmers, and we're really stoked to see so much attention and excitement around food hubs, which is a topic that's near and dear to our hearts, and obviously if you're here, it's probably close to your hearts as well too. So thank you so much for being here. Also big thanks to our presenters and panelists today, our sponsors who helped make this event possible, and everybody else who contributed to making the conference happen this year. Want to let everybody know that today's session is being recorded. There will be an evaluation that pops up at the end of your screen when the workshop concludes. And otherwise, just want to encourage you guys, if you have any comments or resources you want to share that might be related, feel free to use the chat feature. You'll see that down at the bottom. And also you'll see a little button there that says Q&A. If you have questions for today's panelists, drop it in there and we'll do our best to get them answered. But otherwise, thank you so much. And I'm going to pass it over to Yusuf here, who will take care of things for you. Have a great session, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Hi, my name is Yusuf Bouzian. I'm the Farm to Market Program Manager at CAFF. And myself and Gwinnell will be facilitating today's session. Our session is titled Food Hub Sales, Trends, and Successes. And it'll be a panel, a Q&A format between the panelists. We have 3 Food Hub leaders as the panelists today. And then we'll shift into some Q&A from the chat box that attendees can put questions in throughout, and we'll kind of follow up with those at the end of the session. And as many of you know, food hubs are a valuable resource for farmers, buyers, and community food systems throughout the state. And in this session, we're going to hear from our panelists of food hubs to discuss how they've been able to aggregate and work collaboratively with farmers to address market needs. So with that, I'll pass it over to my co-moderator, Gwinnell, to share a little bit about her role and the California Food Hub Network.
Thanks, Yusuf, and thanks for inviting me to join this workshop today. So my name is Gwinnell Engel-Skirchen, and I work for UC Syrup, which is Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program. We're part of UC A&R. And one of the programs that we are involved with under our umbrella of many other project work is coordinating a California Food Hub network. And so the objective of that is to just create both a virtual and an in-person space for food hubs across California to get together and learn from each other and exchange knowledge. As well as to identify the needs of food hubs around the state so that we can help leverage resources to meet those needs. So this workshop is very much in line with those goals, and I'm excited to hear how the conversation unfolds today. And I think Yusuf put into the chat, there's a link to the California Food Hub Network webpage within our Syrup website. And a feature that we have that is relatively new that's called Find a Food Hub in California. And so we tried to identify the food hubs around the state and locate them on the map along with a blurb. So if you are joining us today and you're a food hub and you're not finding yourself on the map, let me know, because we would love to make sure that you're included and represented. So I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves. And we would love to hear, obviously, the name of your food hub that you're joining us from today. And then if you could just give a little bit of context and background in terms of your operations, the types of farmers that you do business with, that you purchase from, the types of customers and markets that you engage with, just to kind of orient us collectively to how you're approaching your food hubbery. So with that, I will Yusuf, should I call on someone?
Sure, yeah.
Heather, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Hi. Hi, my name is Heather Fenney. I'm the director of an organization in South Central Los Angeles called Community Services Unlimited. And in 2007, we launched a social enterprise called the Village Marketplace, which was kind of pulling together urban agriculture work that we were doing. We were growing food and youth training and internship programs. We were training young people in the skills and knowledge about our food system. And the Village Marketplace was kind of pulling together those things to increase access to healthy food, create jobs, build market opportunities for local farmers to bring their good food into our neighborhood. In 2018, we opened, the business grew. We did pop-up produce stands. We did a little bit of wholesale to corner stores. We did some value-added processing. But in 2015, we were able to purchase a property. And in 2018, we opened the Village Marketplace Community Food Hub. It consists of a small retail market. It's about the square footage of a corner store, but if you walk in, it's like a tiny little Whole Foods. So it's got hyper local produce from small farmers, from urban growers, and other natural grocery items. And then we also have a commercial kitchen, and that's also our storage area. And we produce value-added products and various things that we also sell through our market. And so our mission, our vision, why we're working is, like I said, increasing access to healthy food in our neighborhood, creating a place where farmers can come and have their produce sold in our neighborhood all the time. You know, there are a handful of farmers markets around us, not very, well, I shouldn't say a handful, there are a couple farmers markets around us, but in order to get high quality produce, folks mostly have to leave the neighborhood. Markets are only a couple hours a week. And so we wanted to create something where we could be there all the time. And then we're also, you know, working to create good jobs in our neighborhood and to create a place where other local small food-based entrepreneurs can sell their products. Many leave the neighborhood to go to like fairs and farmers markets and things like that to vend, and we want to have a place where they can sell their stuff locally. How many farmers do we work with? I mean, it fluctuates all the time, but we've got about 20 to 30 on our roster. And our farmers, there are a couple who are around like 100 acres, but for the most part, our growers are pretty small, like 10 to 25, maybe 10 to 30 acres. And we buy a lot actually from urban growers as well. So backyard farmers in really small quantities. Yeah, I think those are all the questions. Look forward to sharing more along the way.
Thank you, Heather. Abraham, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I just wanted to give you like a background on my story and how I just started farming and everything, and how I went on to start my food hub. Well, my name's Abraham Garcia. I first started as a raspberry picker in my summer vacation. Before that, I never really thought of the field. I fell in love with the farm working community. It was planted in my head to start my own farm when I started working for this raspberry grower where I would pick during the summer. And he too started as a picker, and it gave me hope, seeing that he was a first generation farmer and he was able to feed his community and build good paying jobs in his community. Sorry. But yeah, I started as a raspberry picker, and then I started selling fruits and vegetables on the side of the road in Gilroy. I again was inspired by the farmer across the street growing and selling his produce directly to the consumer. I knew that day that I needed to start my own farm, but I didn't even know where to start. One day my mom came home and she told me about this beautiful place called Alba, and it's a farm incubator program where they teach you about how to grow organically and start your own farm. And my mom and I went through the program, and we started our own farm called Royally Grown in November of 2019. And at Alba, there's always about 30 different farmers. So that's the farmers that I source from right now currently. And all these farmers just walking distance from me. Most of them they have less than like 3 acres, 2 acres, 5 acres, really small farms. And when the pandemic hit, I was part of a startup company where we built a grocery store website and we would sell CSA boxes directly to consumers in Marin County. And CAFF heard of our work and I started sourcing. I was already sourcing from small farmers, and that's why CAFF connected us with the grant where we built thousands of CSA boxes that were distributed through Alice Waters Edible Squirrel Program, all being sourced from BIPOC farmers in my area. And since then, I just went on and started my own company called Bridge to Life, and that's the food hub that I am now. And I currently just source from the farmers from Alba and sell to the grocery stores in the Bay Area. Sorry if I was kind of all over the place. I didn't even know where to go with it.
No, that was perfect. That was a great background and overview. And yeah, look forward to hearing more and talking more as we get into it. Michael.
Yeah, thank you. Michael Bosworth. I own and operate a food hub called Next Generation Foods. I'm a 5th generation farmer in Northern California. We farm primarily rice. We have some walnuts and some cattle also, about 30 miles north of Sacramento. I started direct marketing our rice in 2006 and was able to find some buyers, but couldn't figure out the distribution part. And so I started Next Generation Foods as a distribution business. And pretty soon after I started selling to my customers, they were asking for other local products. And so it kind of made sense to create a food hub and, make things more efficient. So been doing that since 2006. My primary focus prior to COVID was food service. So we serve a lot of universities and tech campuses throughout the Bay Area and the Sacramento area. When COVID hit, we ended up having to kind of pivot into retail size packages. We work with primarily dry pantry goods, so rice, dry beans, pasta, popcorn, things like that. Work with about a dozen farms. So over the last 2 years, we've been refining our retail approach. We were able to connect with CAFF to kind of work with Vacaville Unified School District and a couple other school districts to supply their weekly box pickup program that when folks were having to stay home. And so we launched a new retail brand called True Origin Foods, which is a cohesive brand that can source from a lot of different farms, but provide traceability using a farmer ID on the bag to figure out where all the products are coming from. So we've been kind of growing that. And now that food service is back, we're, kind of gearing back up for that. So that's been really good. And we recently bought a co-packing business. So we're able to, package for other customers, anything, any kind of dry flowable goods. So if anybody is needing any kind of co-packing service in the Sacramento area, we now have that available. So we also work with some other food hubs. So we sell to Farm Fresh to You, we sell to Tahoe Food Hub, Meadow Lake Food Hub, Cape Valley Farm Shop. So we found that kind of collaborative approach to be really helpful for everybody. We always have dry goods, and sometimes there's a gap in vegetables or something like that. And that's a nice thing to offer their customers. So
Terrific, Michael, thank you. And yeah, I think it's so great to have all of you, and I'm just reminded of how broad, how much range and variability there can be within the food hub space, and the way in which each of you is oriented to different markets and retail space, direct to consumer, wholesale, and all of that. So I think it's really great to see so much so many different approaches. So with that, I'll hand it to Yusuf to kick us off into some of the panel questions.
Great, thank you, Linnell, and thank you to Heather, Abraham, and Michael. So we're gonna start jumping into some of the Q&A questions here for the panel. First off, if a farmer is looking to begin working with a food hub, what should they consider? And what does that process look like with your food hub specifically? So is there like some sort of onboarding process? Is there an intake process that they would go through? So maybe you could answer that more generally if they're looking to work with a food hub, and then what that process looks like with your food hub in particular. Yeah, and feel free to jump in when any of you are ready to answer.
Yeah, I can take that one. From our experience, it's been more of a demand driver for us. So, for example, the Golden One Center where the Sacramento Kings play, they were looking for popcorn. They wanted to buy 90% of their ingredients within 150 miles. And I had a neighbor that grows a lot of organic popcorn. So I approached him, and many of our new products and farms that we've added have been based on conversations with our customers. There have been some that have come and approached us directly, but in those cases, generally I'll just take, the products that they're offering to my customer base, their feedback, understand, if the pricing makes sense for everybody, then we'll onboard that product if there's enough demand. And, generally we're looking for, kind of similar growing practices to what we're implementing, right? So sustainability and, efficient use of resources and, things like that, where we feel like we're comfortable supporting, the growing practices there in that product.
Yeah, I can say, I think similarly, we do a lot of like recruiting of our growers. We started out, we do a lot of recruitment like in the farmers markets that are around us. We really want to try to maximize the trips that folks are already making into town. And so we kind of start there with like our closest markets. We kind of have an interview process that we go through in the beginning, just trying to figure out if like the logistics of it can work. A lot of the growers that we work with don't do wholesale. We might be their only wholesale client. And so we're kind of providing training and support and that along the way. Or if we're one of like very few that they maybe do. And so, so we'll work with them up front, like what days do you come into market and can you deliver? Or do we need to pick up, those kind of like logistical questions. That really drives a lot of it because we're purchasing kind of smaller quantities. And then similarly, we talk to them about like their growing practices. Most of the folks that we buy from don't own their land. Many of them aren't certified organic. And so we have some pretty extensive conversations so that we can understand what practices they are using. And trying to think what else. And then with the urban growers that we buy from, those folks, most of them like obviously aren't doing like agriculture wholesale. And so there's a lot more just like we do a lot of facilitating of the logistics, like helping them figure out pricing. We'll even come in and kind of do trainings with them on how to harvest, how to pack, so that they can bring it in a way that preserves the quality and is in a way that we can sell it, how big bunches should be, all those kinds of things. We have a program where we do garden education, how to grow food. And so we kind of channel folks into that program. And we've been working to develop out a network called the South Central Growers and Harvesters Network, which is like a collective of growers and fruit tree harvesters in our neighborhood. And so we use that as a channel to provide training and support. And hopefully down the road, like members of that network can engage in kind of mutual aid. Like I have trees I need to pick. Does everyone want to come help me pick this, month, and I'll come help you pick later. And so we use that as a structure for providing people with training on how to pick and prepare their products so that we can sell it. And then, the last thing I'll say is we do have, for folks that want to come out to us, we have like a form on our website, that's just like, who are you? What do you grow? What days can you deliver? Just enough to get to know you to start the conversation. So if people do want to reach out to us, there's a channel for them to communicate that to us.
Yeah, with us, since we move such small volume of boxes, it would have to go back to it being logistically, economically viable for us to pick up from anyone, but if it's on the way to the Bay Area, it would make sense. The most important thing would be the quality, and like Heather was saying, the size of the bunches. And the consistency doesn't really matter because my buyers know that some things come and go. But as long as the quality is there, I would be happy to work with anyone.
Great, thank you so much. Gwinnell, do you want to ask the next question?
Sure. Yeah, so I think that we wanted to hear a little bit about the different challenges that you all face. You're, all coming to us from different parts of the state. And so I think interested in kind of, the aggregation piece. Heather, you mentioned the logistics. And I would add to that too, like market challenges that you may or may not run into.
With me, since we work with so many new farmers, the hardest part would be the quality and the consistency of the quality, the size of the bunches. That's always been an issue since we work with such new farmers. But I find myself going back to the same farmers that provide the same consistency. So all this has to go back to your relationship with the farmers and just trial and error and seeing who has best quality kale, who has the best quality strawberries. You just have to keep going at it until you find really good people.
Yeah, I think on our end, we have a couple of vehicles. Most of our farmers are fairly close. So on the logistics side, it's not too bad. We have a pretty good sized warehouse. It's cold storage, so we don't have to worry about any insect issues. On the production end, like anybody in ag, right? I'm planning right now for what I need until December of 2023. So I'm going to plant rice starting next month. I'm going to harvest it in November, October, September, October. And that's my supply until, the end of next year. And so with everything changing, especially due to COVID, it's really hard to make the adjustments and kind of hit all right. So that's the same for all the farmers that we're dealing with. Sometimes the growing season and adaptability in certain regions and certain crops is a little bit shorter, so that's helpful. I think our biggest issue is identifying and connecting with customers, right? So on the food service side, if we're selling to Bon Appetit, if we're selling to Sodexo, people like that. It's not always real transparent on how you connect with every chef at every tech campus or university. So it's a lot of work on our end to identify those people. We pre-COVID would, knock on a lot of back doors at loading docks and get to meet people. We can't really do that now. So I think that's probably our largest barrier for really growing our sales effort is just connecting with the people that already want our product, right? And have proven to really like it and enjoy the quality and everything that we're doing. So anybody knows how to do that, let me know.
Yeah, I think for us, one of the challenges is just the some of the logistics around ordering and knowing what people have. Like I said, we're not working with growers who have like a lot of infrastructure on that. So most of it's like by text message, and for this farm, you have to text this person unless it's Tuesday, and then you have to text this person, and these folks can take an email, and so there's just a lot of that going on. We don't have like this really streamlined way because our farmers aren't like doing large scale wholesale where they would like enter into some system that they have tons of stuff available. It's like constantly shifting and conversational, and so I think that's just challenge, like it's just labor intensive with our folks, and then sometimes that can get in the way, like if we have customers who want something in a different volume or a special product, the conversation between the two can be tricky. Yeah, I guess, and then some of the other challenges that other folks were talking about. We don't have, because we buy in small quantities. I mean, distribution can be an issue because, we don't have the capacity to, like, Southern California to drive all around and pick up from everyone. And so we need to try to find pathways where most folks can deliver to us. And sometimes our purchase, like, it isn't worth it for them to deliver. So there's just a lot of negotiating with the logistics around that too.
The next question we had is around kind of how you incorporate farmer input into your decision making. I know you all have mentioned in different ways that you focus on working with farmers in your area and keeping consistent lines of communication. But I wanted to ask, how do you incorporate farmer input into your and feedback into your decision making? Is it kind of formalized? Do you have like informal phone calls and meetups? Or, I know some more formal food hubs might have like a board of directors that have farmers on it. So how do you stay in touch with farmers and incorporate their thoughts into the work that you do?
Well, we have pretty active dialogue. A lot of the farmers that we deal with are friends of mine that I interact with outside of Next Generation Foods. We work a lot together and kind of projecting usage and planning and acting for production and try and understand what's happening in their markets, and what might be driving production gaps or any issues that they might have that we don't understand coming into the new season.
I mean, for our more like traditional farmers, it's more about one-on-one conversation that we just stay in contact with them always about what we're doing, what they've got coming up, how we can work together on that. Where we have maybe more interaction is with our urban growers. And we do a lot of kind of assessing where people are, what their needs are for skills building or capacity to grow, and then providing that either in like one-on-one or small group trainings. And convening, we're working towards convening like a series of networks meetings with those urban growers. With COVID, it's been a little hard to bring people together in that way. So it's a lot of one-on-one.
Same thing with me. It's just all one-on-one since I farm right next to them. It's just they're all in walking distance. We always see each other. We're just always interacting. So their input's always in my head.
So I'll throw out another question, and this was kind of prompted by what you guys are talking about, and also I was looking back at the National Food Hub Survey, and the most recent data was from 2019, and it was talking about sort of what food hubs prioritize in sourcing from their growers. And so product quality was at the top of the list. And I think, all of you guys are just indicating like through, the kind of real like deliberate relationships that you have with your growers and the way that you're really keeping an eye on the quality of the product and all of that, that's really apparent. And the kind of characteristic that food hubs were least focused on was the price. And I know that that can be a challenge then in the market in terms of finding buyers. And I'm wondering if you can speak to that a little bit in terms of either your pricing strategy, or if you find that there's tension between the price that your farmers would like for a product and what you think you can sell the product for. And how you handle that, or just kind of generally like where price fits into your niche, as a business and as an aggregator.
Yeah, on our end, we don't ever ask the farmer to, move their pricing down, right? We ask for, what their pricing is, what's fair. And we, look at kind of what kind of a margin we need, depending on if we're picking it up or how long we're gonna have to store it or whatever it is, and go to our customers and see if it's gonna work. And sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it's a little high. They give us that feedback. We share that feedback with the grower. They have an opportunity at that point to change their pricing or not. And if it just doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's worst thing you can do is force pricing on anybody in this chain, right? So that's where we're at. I mean, I just had a call today with a pretty good sized potential customer, and they're hammering me on price, but they're comparing the products that we're selling them to imported jasmine and things like that. And it's not the same thing. If you want to support local, it's probably going to cost you a little bit more. And, I just encourage people, to the extent possible, to hold strong on your prices and really highlight the value that you're bringing to the relationship. And I've had to compromise on that in the past, and it doesn't do anybody any good. So.
Yeah, I would say that, our customer base is really price sensitive. If we're selling at retail, we're trying to keep it affordable. And then also we do some wholesale to most of our wholesale customers are like small markets, like mom and pop corner stores. So their customers are very price sensitive, or we sell to other organizations. So before COVID, it was a lot of like after school programs or nutrition ed programs that other organizations might be running. And then we provide them with the produce. And then during COVID and still now, like packing, produce that folks are doing for emergency food distribution and stuff like that. So our customers are really price sensitive. Similar, we aren't trying to push our farmers to have lower prices, but we do, participate in that conversation. Where are you? Who's what will our customer pay? And then we try to work with our farmers, like, concentrate purchases, because a lot of our growers are growing, maybe 10 or 15 different items on their farm. So we maybe can't buy enough of one item to allow them to lower the price, but can we buy enough diverse items from them that we can work together on a price, to make that worthwhile. So that's one thing that we navigate, is like concentrating our purchases amongst different growers when we can, so that we can try to make it worthwhile for them, but create some more wiggle room on prices when we need it. And then we also, like in our market, we have support through the GusNet program to offer produce at a discount for EBT customers. And so that makes what our stuff is more expensive, but for customers with the greatest need, we offer a 75% discount on fresh produce if you purchase it with EBT. So it's pretty significant.
On my end, I'm pretty fortunate to work with buyers in the Bay Area they really want to support the farm. So pricing is never really an issue. It's never really been an issue with me or the farmers. When the market price is higher, we pay a little bit more, but we never really have problems with pricing, because like I said, we're fortunate enough to work with really good people in the Bay Area that know these farmers need to get paid a fair and decent price for the produce.
All right, I'm gonna shift over to some like a different category of questions here. I want to ask around kind of your experience during COVID and the experiences of the growers that you work with. Kind of the first question in this topic area is what are the challenges that farmers have faced, the farmers that you work with have faced during COVID, and have you been able to support them through those challenges? Has aggregating through your food hub helped them address those challenges?
During COVID, I seen a lot of my neighbors, like so many of my neighbors, they had acres of celery, acres of lettuce. They were just tilling it in because there wasn't a market for them. It was really sad, and some people had to quit farming, and it was just a really depressing time. But these people are really resilient, and it was just the saddest thing to see these people put in so many months and money and just so much into the crop and just tilling it in. But that's something I had to see, unfortunately, with my neighboring farmers right there at Alba. COVID really impacted them. But also there was a lot of help to the government. A lot of these government programs, a lot of government programs went to Alba and started sourcing. So it was a pretty depressing time for the farmers I work with.
Yeah, we work with a farm that has pretty significant market in bulk bins. So they're distributed pretty widely in major retail stores in their bulk aisle. And all that was shut down with COVID. And so that really impacted their ability to move their crop. And our demand through, our website and Farm Fresh to You and other hubs like Cape Valley Farm Shop really increased. And, I think we were able to kind of help make up that shortfall quite a bit in his demand. So that was really helpful. It was really an odd time to be in the rice business. I'm sure, many of you remember what it was like in March of 2020 when you couldn't find pantry staples. And so that was, we were in an extremely long position on jasmine rice going into COVID. We figured at least 2 years worth of supply because we had a customer change vendors, and we sold almost everything out in like a month. And so, the impacts were wide ranging from good to bad. But I think we all had to make pretty significant changes to adapt there.
In our case, the early days of COVID, like again, most of the farmers that we're buying from don't do a lot of other wholesale. And so the biggest impact was like the farmers markets here closed down for a bit. And so we moved pretty quickly to doing emergency food boxes and working with partners that were doing emergency food boxes. And so we were able to tap into those growers and give them an opportunity to bring the stuff that they couldn't take to the farmers markets. And so that's, what we were able to do. All of the growers that we work with continued to farm through the pandemic. And once they were able to get back into the markets, did pretty well because, the grocery stores were hard to get into and the farmers markets were busy. And I think a lot of the small farmers that we worked with tapped into like the produce box, situation that like us and other organizations were doing. Yeah. And I'd say for us on the urban grower side, like folks had more time and people were home. And so we have a lot of folks who kind of stepped into that space for the first time. So that was people who in the past were maybe calling us to like come harvest from their trees just as like a donation. We turned around and said, well, actually, why don't you harvest it and we'll just buy it from you. And so helping to turn, those folks into suppliers.
So jumping off that last question, we'd love to hear if there are any changes that you made to your operations or your hubs as a result of COVID that you are continuing or plan to continue, positive adaptations.
I think ours is just diversifying out of food service into retail. So, food service is still going to continue to be a growth area for us, really important foundation for really driving volume. But, we learned a lot about selling into retail. And, I think we have something that a lot of people can't offer, which is direct traceability back to individual farms at scale. So that was really interesting. And, we've kind of put together the the supply chain and the equipment that we need to really continue that effort.
Well, one thing we started during COVID was buying some grains like flour and quinoa and a couple things directly from some growers up north. It's been hard because there's not a lot of infrastructure to move that stuff down here. And so it's been kind of friends and family who've been willing to throw bags of stuff in the back of their truck. So we don't have a real reliable source, but there's a demand and an interest for it. And so that's something that our local sourcing had been mostly like produce and eggs and some poultry, but we're interested in keeping the dry goods, the pantry items, and expanding it. Folks were really interested in that. We just need a way to get it to us more reliably.
We actually started because of the pandemic. We like I said, we built a grocery website because the demand was there for CSA boxes being directly delivered to people's houses. So my food hub actually started because of the pandemic.
I love that. You are the positive adaptation.
All right, so shifting out of the COVID related questions, I know this is going to be a very broad question, but I think we could get some good discussion out of this. What do you think are the most critical needs for food hubs in California today? I know COVID has had a wide range of impacts, and there's a lot of other challenges on the horizon, but it seems like food hubs have become trending, and there's some state funds coming in towards food hubs, and it's from seeing the first partner and the governor's office have had interest in food hubs, and organizations like the CDFA, Office of Farm to Fork. So what do you think are the most critical needs for food hubs in California today, since there is this kind of gained interest around food hubs? Yeah, and take your time to think about it, because I know that's a very there's a lot behind that question.
For me is, how do we communicate what we have, and it seems to be there's a lot of interest in food hubs. We have a lot of interest in finding new customers, and so what's the best way to kind of match that, right? So the food hub new website that you were talking about, Gwinnell, is awesome. I think that's really a really great start to doing that. And I think there are other resources out there. I know CAFF has a kind of a farmer directory. It's just how do we push that? How do we make people aware of what is available in their region? Where are the food hubs located? Where do they deliver? What kind of products do they have? And start those kind of conversations, because I know there are more people out there that we should be connecting to that know that value what we're doing, and that's the biggest thing for us. And we understand logistics and all the costs and everything else on that side. It's just how can we scale our business and allow farmers to get out of the volatile commodity markets and access these kind of long-term relationships with end buyers. I mean, that's the entire purpose of what I've been doing for 16 years. And so, if anybody has any ideas there, I think it would be awesome to really kind of build that kind of infrastructure out to make those connections.
I think one thing for us is, and it came up a few times on the call, is just this shift to like servicing either, more retail customers or these like pre-packed boxes or, whatever those things. They're just more labor intensive. And then that's related also to your pricing, and you don't want to compromise what you're paying your farmers. And so I just, while everyone's really excited about like there's this excitement about food hubs, but is it really matched by like the willingness to pay and invest in the food that's coming out of the food hubs? And so I think the continued kind of education or like collaborative marketing, but like if, you know, that it costs more, you know, just like Michael was saying, you know, that people want this product, but it costs more because the money's doing more. And so I think that's just a really critical need, is that kind of education piece for the people who would be the customers of the food hub, you know, not just maybe a restaurant customer or food service customers, but like more and more, like there's emergency food or, you know, more price sensitive customers that are interested. They're like, oh, I want to support my local food hub. Well, then, you know, you have to pay more for that food. Yeah, so I think just continuing to have kind of support and education around that, maybe more targeted to different audiences, different customer audiences. And then I think on the retail side, like making the food that comes out of the food hubs accessible, continuing to expand like the GusNet program and the work that the state is doing to put funding behind like market match and those kinds of things, so that consumers can be purchasing the food. So like if a small market wants to purchase the produce, their food from a food hub to have good quality stuff and local stuff in their market, is there support out there for their customer base to be able to afford that food?
Yeah, we were sourcing to the Monterey County Food Bank, so definitely I think state funding would help a lot of these food hubs. But also finding good quality produce that's consistent. That's what I would feel like, because I think the buyers are there, and just finding the consistency of the good quality produce, I feel like that would be like one of the biggest pieces.
And I just want to flag, yeah, I think those are all such important points from all of you. And I am also seeing that Michelle Weiler put in the chat, sort of flagging all of these regulatory questions in terms of liability. And so that there's, sounds like indicating that there's a need for technical assistance around that as well. And I will mention, I'll drop in the chat just on the sort of regulatory food safety aspect. We developed some resources, UC Syrup along with the UC Davis Food Center for Science and Technology, specifically for sort of small and mid-scale food hubs to use. So I'll post that. Yusuf, are there any questions in the Q&A that are jumping out at you? Or I think we also were going to give you all as panelists a chance to ask questions of each other if during this discussion there's anything that's jumped out at you where you're like, how do they do that? Or I want to know more about that. So yeah, if you all have questions to pose to each other, or if there's something jumping out in the Q&A, Yusuf.
Yeah, it looks like here's I think a kind of straightforward question, but it'll definitely be good to know, especially for the farmers on the call. What do you require of farmers that sell through your food hub? Is there like any technical requirements that you'll need? Yeah, just what does that process look like as far as requirements from the farmers that you work with?
Yeah, so since we're in kind of pantry products, you know, all of our products have to go through some kind of processing, you know, taken from the field. So rice has to be milled, beans have to be cleaned, and you know, those are all taking place in facilities that have the proper food safety certificates and programs put together. So a lot of time we'll ask for those just because our customers are asking for those as well. You know, we try and get an idea of what their growing practices are. We basically are going to write up a profile for our growers so that we can share those with our customers. And then we work on production planning and understanding kind of what their constraints are and what we need to be thinking about when we're selling their products. Any technical questions on like cooking and preparing, or any cleaning that needs to be done by the chefs, that's really good. But those are the big ones on our end. We're a little bit lucky. We're not dealing with perishable items. We're not dealing with E. coli. There's so many things that everyone else here is dealing with that, just by the structure and background of what I do, we haven't had to deal with. But I understand all those, and I understand the risks there, and it's really a different ball game that a lot of you are playing in. And I respect all that. I know it's a lot more thorough, all the requirements there, but for what we're doing, that's about it.
I would say food safety, to be certified organic, the quality. The most important thing would be communication on what's going on. If your product's a little bit different this week or the next week, or if you're not going to have it. The most important part of it all is communication and actually following through with what you communicated.
Yeah, I would say all of that. And just one of the things that came to mind for me is like, we have to get invoices to issue payments. We have to, like, that's one thing we require, which a lot of our farmers are doing, like cash business. And so sometimes that's a hurdle for us. And so we have to create systems for them to create the kind of invoices and documentation that we need for our management. So that's something that we've had to work through with folks. And then, yeah, communication is just really key, because we don't require our folks to be certified organic. The language that we use in our marketing is beyond organic, and we do a profile system, like Michael talked about. But we do require that people communicate if something changes, if the practices that they standard use change. Sometimes someone has something happen and they end up spraying it, or else they're going to lose it. And so, we maintain good communication with our farmers. And so we've had people come to us and say, hey, just so you know, I had to do this. And so if you want to buy it or not, or what's going on.
On that note, relating to, I know you touched on like invoices and management. Do you all use any software or management systems currently to manage your buying or your selling, or any management internally? Are there any softwares that you would recommend?
I just use QuickBooks and mostly Sheets. That's about it.
Yeah, we're the same. We try and have inventory updated in QuickBooks. We do a fairly good job at it. Try and reconcile it on a monthly basis, but that's it. We have par numbers, so we watch those and then bring in new product based on dropping below the par numbers.
For our retail customers, we use CSAware. We have like a subscription program, and we use CSAware. And that's a decent interface. Folks can order their boxes and then they can add on to it also. And so we just have to manage inventory there in terms of what folks can add on. Otherwise, QuickBooks and Excel, that's what we use too.
Great. We've got some questions in the Q&A box as well. I think this will be another pretty quick question. But Chuck asks, what are the legal structures of your food hubs? Are you for-profit, nonprofit? Yeah, so what structures do you currently have for your entities?
We're for-profit. We're an S Corp. We've been that way since 2006.
For-profit, sole proprietorship.
And the VMP is solely owned and operated by Community Services Unlimited, which is a nonprofit. So it's a project of, a business of.
Great, thank you. We've got another question from Andrea. Do you ever sell between food hubs? I know Michael mentioned some sales he's done with KB Valley Farm Shop, and I know NextGen has sold to a bunch of other food hubs. And yeah, and Gwinnell, you might even be able to give some insight on experiences you've seen within the food hub network of any cross sales amongst food hubs. So if anyone wants to touch on their experiences working or selling with other hubs.
Well, we don't really have other hubs around us to be buying from, but in some cases, our farmers, we kind of coordinate with them. So, if we have someone who we're buying row crops from and they have a neighbor who has an orchard, then they kind of, we'll kind of work with them that way to get to other growers. So it's not really a hub, but we're not working necessarily with that orchard directly. We kind of partner with our farmers sometimes to get more product, but we're not buying from other hubs.
I don't work with other food hubs either, but I do sell my extra produce from my own field to Coke Farms. They're really great people right here in Hollister.
Yeah, we work with four other food hubs, and we also actually work with some mainline distributors like Fresh Point and Vesta for particular customers that won't onboard, new smaller vendors. So that's worked out pretty well also.
Yeah, and I'll just, I think there's been continued interest in this in hub to hub sales. And I know there have been some real success stories too in Northern California between the different hubs transacting, just based on the different seasonality or the different crops that are grown more abundantly in one region over another. I think and Heather, you sort of alluded to this, the transit, particularly like Northern to Southern California has been challenging. There's, I guess, LTL and stuff like that, but none of the hubs in my experience have kind of, are at the scale or the capacity to, or have the quantity. So yeah, I think there's still a lot of potential and, exploration as far as how hubs can do more transactions with each other.
All right, we've got 2 more minutes. I wanted to maybe, before we open to any final questions, do the Food Hub panelists have any questions for each other? If not, we can shift into one more from the Q&A. Looks like we got a question on marketing tools. Does anyone want to quickly share what current marketing tools they're using or how their marketing works?
We do a fair amount on social media. Some of my biggest customers have come from LinkedIn, Instagram. It's crazy how people find us and how we find people. And as far as interacting with our customers on a weekly basis, we send them, product lists, emails, and reminder emails on a weekly basis to, solicit orders and kind of make sure that that's all kind of moving along as it should be. We found that kind of just continues to drive orders for us. So that's kind of how we set that up.
I just send a lot of bugging emails to potential customers with the availability list.
Seems to be a tried and true method.
Yeah, social media and email, same.
All right, it's 5 o'clock. I want to thank our 3 panelists, Heather, Michael, and Abraham. I shared their names, contact info in the chat box. If you had any questions that we didn't get to, please feel free to contact us at CAFF and we can relay those questions to our wonderful panelists. I also put in an evaluation survey in the chat box. If any attendees could take a second, there's only 3 questions on there. Should take you 30-second stops to fill it out. So thank you again for everyone for being a part of this panel. Thank you to Gwinnell for co-moderating with me. And thank you for attending the California Small Farms Conference. We're gonna have our awards ceremony at 5:30 tonight to wrap up the conference. It's been a great week of a lot of wonderful educational sessions, and we thank you all for being a part of it.
Thank you.